So thank you everyone for joining us today. We're really excited to be hosting this workshop with Ocean, so founder of Spark Flow Grow. You can check her website out, and she is in our Slack channel, so if you do need to have a chat to her after the workshop. But Ocean is a VA, so that we are working through the workshop with her today on how to work with a VA. And her business is about helping creative agencies with their admin, bookkeeping, project management and operations. So hopefully we'll go through how a VA can help you with those things within your business. So thanks for joining us, Ocean. We're going to go for about half an hour to 45 minutes, and I've heard it's going to be a really interactive session, so I'm really excited to see what you've got for us. So it's over to you.
Awesome, thank you very much. So yeah, it'll be about 20 to 30 minutes of me speaking, but as Serena said, it will be interactive, so have your notebooks ready. I will just share my screen. Joys of having a million tabs open.
I always struggle with the two screens because then it flicks open to another screen and I'm like, oh, which one are you guys seeing?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to get my notes up, but without the notes being presented.
That's right. Take your time.
That's always the fun part. Right. Here we go.
There we go.
Lovely. Can you see just the presentation here?
Yeah.
Wonderful. And then I will move our faces out of my way. Lovely. Well, thank you again for joining. I appreciate you taking the time on your first day of lockdown's lunch break. So really, really pleased to have you here. As Serena said, I'm Ocean, the founder of Spark Flow Grow. And as she said, we work with creative agencies providing the business administration, finance and operations support to busy teams. It's a lot of fun and very dynamic. And I love knowing that my natural flair for conscientiousness helps creatives to deliver their mission. And Abdi is on the call and we're actually working together on a project at the moment. So it's nice to have you here. So today's workshop is all about working with a VA, which, as we will discover as we go along, is actually about making you less busy. So today we'll go through what is a VA, so what actually can a VA do? Oh, let's just get my slide. What the benefits of working with a VA are, what you can delegate to a VA, where you can find them, and tips for building a successful relationship. So this will be a very practical workshop, and it will ask you to do a lot of thinking and be thinking about your own businesses and how you can start to implement some of what I'm saying into your personal circumstances. Before we begin, though, it would be great to hear from you guys with some quick intros. So if you don't mind just sharing who you are, what you're working on at the moment, and how you're feeling on this weird Thursday.
Shall I go first?
Go for it.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Ocean, for arranging this, and Serena. So I'm Sergey, and the reason I'm here is because I run a solo consultancy. I work as a product coach with startups, and this enterprise is a bit of a one-man band, so basically responsible for everything, whereas the real objective is to maximize the time actually doing the coaching. And as such, I have this kind of challenge where I do not have an extra pair of hands, but I do have a lot of duties to juggle. So having a VA by my side is one potential outlet that could be helpful. That's why I'm curious in the topic.
Great, thank you for going first.
Cheers.
Okay, Serena, very good to see you again.
Yes, nice to see you.
And Ocean, congratulations on your new business, first of all.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for taking time out, obviously, to put together this presentation, which I'm sure we'll find very interesting. I own a couple of different businesses, and I have lots of different people do different things for me. But in my own personal capacity as a consultant, I deal with a lot of corporate governance these days. I now need to reintroduce somebody to provide my extra pair of hands as well. And I'm sure you'll cover the kind of issues, the confidentiality issues and timeliness and all that sort of thing, and accountability of somebody. So I'm quite interested to hear how you might provide those services. But I'm also work with an awful lot of new startups and established businesses where the owners of those businesses also from time to time need additional help. Perhaps you asked about, the time we find ourselves in, and being Thursday now. I'm not actually aware that it's lockdown Thursday, in the sense that nothing has changed for me since, for many years, in the sense that I can move freely around. I'm not constrained. And what I mean by that is that most of us here that run our own small businesses or run businesses have that ability to continue to travel and move around to facilitate our businesses for business purposes. And so we're not perhaps as constrained as employees who are forced to work from home or forced to work in an office or a hostile environment. I mean, a hostile environment might be a hospital if you're a healthcare worker, because it's quite frightening perhaps going to work every day. So I think we are slightly privileged, but we've had to adjust things. So for example, we might have been having this meeting around a coffee table at an AndCo venue. Well, we clearly can't do that. So it's useful to see how you can provide your services at a greater distance than historic. We won't probably get the same opportunity to meet each other at the beginning of the day. Excuse the other phone. I'm really interested to hear what you can do, how you're going to deliver it. And I would also then be quite keen to put you in touch with people I work with if there seems to be a good match. So back to you.
Great. Yeah, and I think you raise a really good point there about how for a lot of us, it hasn't been too disruptive from a business standpoint, in that we can, continue to operate our businesses in the same way we were. Abdi, did you want to give a quick introduction? I know you said you're sort of multitasking, so no pressure.
Yeah, sorry, give me 1 second.
No worries.
I'll turn the camera on for a minute so I can see you guys. Hey.
Hello.
What are we doing? Introductions?
Yes, just who you are, what you're working on.
Cool. I'm Abdi. Nice to meet you guys. I know I've met Adrian before. Sergey, I don't think I've met you before, so nice to meet you. Everyone else I know. Yeah, I'm Abdi. I run a company called Drift Time Media with my partner. We've been running for coming up to 5 years now. And we recently changed our name from Curate Labs to Drift Time. We basically do digital design within travel and lifestyle sector, and recently started working with Ocean, where she's coming in to help us with some project management stuff, as well as some relationship building. That's about it, I think.
Amazing. Well, thank you for taking the time. Lovely. So let's jump in. So it sounds like I've tailored this to be an introduction to a VA, but it sounds like you all already have an awareness of what a VA is and what sort of capacity you can bring them in on. But I will just run through it anyway, just to give that context in the first instance. I was going to ask you to write down what comes to mind when you hear the term VA or virtual assistant. I will skip over that, as I think you've got that already. But just keep that in mind as we go through of what your current concept of a VA is, and as we go through, we'll see how that progresses and develops based on the content. So this is a quote from Tim Ferriss, and you might have read his famous book, The 4-Hour Work Week. It is the outsourcing Bible for a lot of people and a lot of business owners. He says, becoming a member of the new rich is not just about working smarter, it's about building a system to replace yourself. And I think I read this quote and I thought that makes sense for businesses where you're looking to grow something and then eventually remove yourself from the picture. But I think for a lot of us, what we do when we enter into a business is we have a mission in mind that we want to deliver, and we have value that we want to add to people and to the world. And I think a lot of the time we don't necessarily want to remove ourselves from that equation or from that system. We still want to be a part of it, and we still want to be part of the team that's delivering the value, but we don't necessarily have the time to be doing everything that delivering that value requires. So when you start your own business venture or your own projects, part of the territory is doing all of the business admin, the operations, the, as Adrian said, the compliance. Those are all things that you have to do, but aren't necessarily part of what it is that you want to achieve in delivering your mission. So a VA is someone who can take those things off your hands. And essentially a VA is someone who specializes in offering administrative services to clients from a remote location, which, given the current climate, is very attractive to people. It's a model that more and more people are adopting. I think before it was something that was for the privileged few and only worked for particular business models. But I think we are, obviously with the current climate, seeing more and more people adopting that remote working model. So you can hire VAs as a contractor to take on specific tasks or projects without the added cost of hiring an employee. And of course, hiring an employee comes with its own added costs, not only from a hiring perspective, but from training, benefits, all of the other things that you need to pay out to hire an employee. And the great thing about working with a VA is that they work with several other businesses and clients at the same time. And for me, I see this being a huge value add, as it means they have a vast amount of experience and ideas to hand that they can add to your business and to your specific needs as well. So just a couple of benefits of working with a VA. So they can work in a variety of capacities. So you can bring them on for short-term tasks, specific projects, or full-time contract work. There's an increased scope of work that they're able to cover. So when you hire a full-time employee, you hire them for a specific scope of work, and their day is filled with meeting those requirements. But what we've actually seen is that productivity increases when you work with a VA. They're not, a lot of the day isn't wasted in the same way that you can see a full-time employee's hours not being utilized. And so with that time that you're saving, there is an increased amount of time that you can add in the scope of work for. As I've mentioned, it's cheaper than hiring a full-time employee. And again, with the remote working, you have an increased flexibility in the working arrangement. So, if you wanted to not work the standard 9 to 5, there is that possibility to change that working style. And then, of course, there's a flexibility in choice. So you can go for someone that's a generalist, so you can help out with everything and anything, or you can hire someone that's a specialist in a particular task that you need support with, and you have the flexibility in choice to do that. So going on to what you can delegate to a VA, this is where I will ask for your notebooks handy. So we'll start with a quick activity. And I want you to think about your own businesses and projects that you're currently working on. And I have 2 questions for you. So the first would be, what do you need done? So just spend a couple of minutes thinking about what is it that you immediately think of when you're thinking of all the things that you need to get done to free you up to focus on what it is that you want to deliver. And these can just be bullet points, reeling them off from your head, just a few things that come to mind. Great. Does everyone have a few things that have come to mind already? Amazing. Cool. And then next we're going to calculate what your hourly rate is. So to calculate your hourly rate, I want you to take your monthly or annual income goal and divide it by the number of hours that you intend to work during that period. So a bit of maths for you here. So monthly or annual income goal divided by the number of hours you intend to work. And what that number will be your hourly rate. So essentially how much your time is worth. What everyone's math skills like.
Slightly confused here.
Mm-hmm.
When we're answering the first question, were we supposed to think of everything that needs to be done in the business,
Sure.
or only things that I'd love to delegate?
Yeah, I should have framed that a bit better. Thank you for asking. Yes, so things that you would like to delegate, but you are currently doing.
And so the amount of time that I intend to work also applies to those tasks.
Yes. So the amount of time you intend to work is sort of, if you were to think of your standard week and how many hours you tend to work in that week, how many would that be? So are you working sort of 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? Are you working 6 hours a day, 3 days a week? Perfect. Is that clear for everyone else? Amazing. So you should have a list of tasks that you would like to delegate that currently you're doing, and then your hourly rate, so how much your time is worth. Would anybody like to share any of those? Not necessarily the hourly rate part, but the tasks that you have in mind.
Okay, I've broken that down into 3 areas, and the irony of this is it goes back a long way, because it's for some people it's a full circle. Actually, where you started in your business career, you've gone through a process where you ended up taking control of things because they were delivered to you directly, like emails and your smartphone, back to a point where you want to get back to the original way you worked. So the 3 are: I want somebody to read my emails, all of them. That's across half a dozen mailboxes in real time during the day, and screen them for me. If you like, putting on my desk the ones I actually need to bother to reply to. I need somebody to proofread lengthy emails and correspondence I have to send out to make sure the spelling and grammar is sensible and it makes sense what I'm saying. And the 3rd area is diary management. I need to know when it's a birthday, when it's an anniversary, who I need to thank, who's leaving, who's joining, that kind of thing. Those are the 3.
Amazing. So very typical personal assistant tasks.
Yes, more classic PA role. Mm-hmm. Rather than outsourcing established business processes. Mm-hmm. These are things that require a very personal service from a known individual who understands the person that he or she is working with. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for sharing.
We have a question from Abdi. He said, what if you don't have an hourly rate, as in you price by value result, which is what we do?
Oh, that is a good question. That's something I've been talking to people a lot about recently, is the idea of money and value. So I think the way to look at it is how much, for this task specifically, how much value you would like to deliver in the year or in a month. And that number would, of course, in the way we trade in our society, is through a number of pounds or dollars. So just what that sort of goal is for you, how much value from a monetary perspective you would like to deliver. Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Sorry, I saw that question from Abby in the chat. So and it is partly a confusing question perhaps to some people, but I look at it this way, that is that if you're in a situation where you yourself charge your clients often by the hour, which is predominantly how I work, then if I can do more work at my rate and delegate efficiently something to somebody else at a lower rate, I can still make more money because I've got more hours freed up to make more money. To me, it's a simple equation. If I can hire in somebody to do the job I'm doing for less, to free me up, that person wins and I win. So I used a figure of 60 hours a week because that's the minimum I would want to work for, only because I get really bored if I'm not working. And I'm not quite sure how I've ended up with this figure, but I came up with a figure that values my hour at £41 an hour net after everything's been taken into account. So I suppose if I can spend that money elsewhere, at least I'm on a starting point as a minimum. I don't know if where that figure fits in with what you expect it to fit in with. Perhaps you could comment.
Was that last question for me or for Abdi?
Sorry, Ocean, it's for you. I've given you a figure, sure. £41. So on the spectrum that you talk to of people, where does that sort of fit in?
So typically I've seen it in a bit higher than that, but you did articulate my point very well, and that's the avenue I was about to go down, in having an idea of what your hourly rate is. You have an idea of, okay, if I can free up this time, how much would I need to pay someone to do that, so that they're doing it at a value that is lower than what my hourly value is. So yeah, I'd be curious to know how that would look for you, Adrian, in terms of that value, just because I have seen it higher for other people.
So let me explain how I get to that figure. That's my net. Sorry, that's my net figure. So I charge clients £100 an hour. Okay, I normally work, and I normally bill at least 100 hours a month. 100 hours, 200 hours a month, which works out about 50 hours a week. I work more than that because I do other things. But by the time I've taken off any overheads in delivering that service for £100 an hour, I work out that my net income per hour is £41. So when people say my charge out rate is £50 an hour, £100 an hour, whatever it is, that's all very well, but then they have overheads to support that. They can't charge that unless they have a system in order to generate that value. So my net income per hour, after I've paid everything out, would be £41 an hour, okay, to give you an idea. So every hour I work, I can put £41 in my pocket, after tax and everything's been taken into account. So my view is then, if we go back to the gross amount, if I charge somebody £100 an hour, a client, and you can support me by allowing me to do twice, you know, to build 2 hours worth of work, but I actually only do an hour of it. You do an hour of it for me, and you charge me £50. I've just made an extra £50 on the side that I'd never have made. So, and that works if I have an infinite capacity within my organization to take on more hours, which frankly I do have. I have no shortage of work. So the more that I can outsource to you or somebody else, or a process I can outsource, the more money I end up with. It's my little Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, and it's the way to look at it, and it's exactly what I was going to run through. It's if you're able to get to a point where you can work 2 hours, or you can
bill 2 hours.
Bill for 2 hours, but only be working one of those hours, then you know you've won. You're still delivering the same amount of value, and still reaping that same upside for you, your business, and your clients. But you're not having to put in all of that legwork. Then you know that is the purpose of this. It's the purpose of working with VAs and delegating work that you don't necessarily need to be doing. I don't want to get too caught up on the hourly rate, so I will move on to the next slide, but hopefully that sort of gives you an idea of why I've asked you to look at what your hourly value is and how you could pay somebody less than that hourly rate to get the same level of work done, and spend your time on the higher value tasks that don't necessarily require your input and your legwork. So on that note, every task and process in your business belongs in one of 4 categories. So that's tasks you should do. Those are the high value tasks that you enjoy doing and you're actually good at. So they're probably the ones that are the value that you see yourself delivering to your clients, and fit into your mission, and possibly what you're passionate about. Tasks that you should not do. So these are the low value tasks that are costed at lower than what is worth your time. And even if you're good at them and you enjoy doing them, I'm sure we can all think of things that we just do because, you know, we're the only one that can do them, knows how to do them. And I think a lot of the time we end up just doing them because we think, oh, it's quicker if I do it. You know, I already know how to do it. It's easier if I just do it than train someone else up. These are the sort of key ones that you want to be focusing on when you're looking at outsourcing. They're very hard to let go of, but I promise you that when you do, you will see a huge shift in the things that you can focus on instead. And then we have the tasks you don't want to do, so ones you just don't like doing. I'm sure we can all think of those. And then tasks that you can't do, so ones where you need to draw on specific knowledge and skills to have it delivered. So those are some things to keep in mind when looking at the specific tasks. So here are some specific things that you can outsource to a VA, and these are the things that you would find if you went searching on the internet and looking for, okay, what can a virtual assistant do? So those are things such as customer service and communications, admin functions, so that could be business admin, it could be project specific admin, any sort of basic administrative functions of your business, diary management and scheduling, that's a very typical one, any troubleshooting support, copywriting, research support, and file and database management. So these are very typical of a virtual assistant, and later on we'll see where you can hire for these kinds of tasks specifically. But when we're looking at these sort of lower ticket tasks, you'd be typically looking at about 15 to 40 pound an hour if you wanted to charge those out to a VA. So these, I would say, were at the lower end of the spectrum of what a VA can offer. Then some perhaps surprising functions that wouldn't always come to mind, or you wouldn't necessarily find if you're researching on the internet for what a virtual assistant could do. These are things such as project management. So as Abdi said, I'm supporting him with some project management in the coming weeks. So whatever function that is for you, you can hire someone in to sort of pull the ropes and make sure everything's ticking along for your projects. Any operational support, so back office operations, and that includes management, so actually sort of managing the operations of your business. Streamlining processes, so making things more automated, streamlining, saving you time. Any financial management, including invoicing and marketing support. So you'll see a bit of a difference in these kinds of tasks. These are very much taking over processes and looking after a whole range of tasks within one umbrella. And these are a bit harder to find if you're sort of looking for someone to take these on. It's not as simple as Googling, I need a virtual assistant and I need them to do this specific task. For these, you're really looking for a person that can manage these sorts of processes and projects for you. So again, you typically be looking at between 30 and 70 pound per hour for these types of tasks. And again, I'll go through in, I think it's the next slide actually. Oh no, I'll go through where you can find these kinds of VAs versus the previous tasks.
Ocean, sorry, I have a quick question. Before, when you mentioned tasks that people shouldn't do and they should obviously delegate but enjoy doing, what are some of those tasks that you typically come across? That are they the lists that you just shared, or are there other things that people often delegate to you or a VA?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the most recent one that I saw was someone worked for a marketing agency and they did all of the invoicing. You know, they billed the clients, they managed the invoicing for their suppliers, and they sort of ran that whole process. And when I came in and said, you know, that's something I could do for you, and just run that process for you, just you can sort of give the sign off and it goes, kind of thing. And they were sort of saying, oh, but I really like doing it. I've been doing it this whole time and I kind of enjoy it. And I was like, I get that. I do get it, because it is, there are some things that we find satisfying, and you know, we get that sort of bit of a dopamine of, you know, ticking something off the tick box or the to-do list. But yeah, that was one that came up recently. And I think in a lot of businesses there probably are just legacy things that you personally have always done. And because of that, it sort of forms part of, I don't want to say your identity, because I don't think it's that extreme, but it does form part of what you perceive to be what you do.
And is that what you
Sergio,
meant when you said that they're the hardest to outsource?
Yeah. Yeah. So it can be hard to let go of them, because I mean, like, I can think of things that I do in my business that if I would start thinking about giving them to someone else, it would feel a bit weird, because I would naturally go to do them every day, and it does take a bit of time to sort of get used to, actually I'm not doing this anymore, and someone else can do this.
I have an option to delegate bookkeeping, but I don't, because I have a strong feeling that if I let go of that, I lose the sense of this kind of financial pulse of how my expenses are going.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And very natural, I think, as well, because, you know, it is your business and you do want to be in touch with what's happening and what's going on within it. And I think when you can find, you know, the right person and someone that you can build trust with and build a good relationship with, which I'll go through shortly, then you can create a system where you are still involved in a way that helps you feel in tune and you know, it's a sense of awareness of what's going on, keeping your finger on the pulse, but not having to do everything. So a good example of that is cash flow management, for example. So in order to see the cash flow, and see, you know, what's coming in, what's going out, and having all of those numbers be correct, you just need to see that sort of top level. Okay, I know where I am, but there's a lot of work that goes in underneath that of, you know, making sure the figures are input correctly, making sure, you know, all of the invoices that need to come up are in the cash flow, and all the expenses coming up are in there. And without you needing to do all of that, you just need to see that top level and keep your finger on the pulse. And something I do with several of my clients is have weekly cash flow meetings where you just run through that, and I provide them with updates of, okay, this is where we're at. We have a bit of back and forth, and then they feel comfortable knowing, you know, that's being taken care of. But yeah, that's a great question. Lovely. So going back to what you can delegate, now we've sort of gone through that and we've dissected a bit more the kinds of things you can delegate. Just spending a couple of moments thinking now, what can you delegate? So I frame this as what do you need done, but I think going back to what Sergey said earlier, what is it that you want to delegate but are still doing yourself? So just curious to know if any of that has sort of changed your perception of the kinds of things you could delegate to a VA.
The entire second list for me. Yeah, when I was spelling that out for the first time, I was kind of feeling that if I put down any of those items, I would be an outlier. So it was a bit of a relief to see that actually there is a breed like that can take care of tasks like this.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad that's helped. Lovely. I'm conscious of time, so I will just run through the next few slides and then we can wrap up with questions. So where can you find a great VA? These are listed in order of what I would say as probably order of quality and preference. If you're looking at the second list, if you're looking at someone that you want to take on projects specifically or specific processes, then you would start with number one and work your way down. But I will just dissect these quickly. So we have your network. So I think with anything in business, your network is the first place you will go when you're looking for something specifically or looking for someone specifically. So I'm sure there are many people you could reach out to and make connection with that might be able to recommend someone or have worked with a VA that they can recommend to you. Of course, coming to workshops like this and being part of communities like AndCo is a great place as well to meet people and see who knows who. Then, of course, there's LinkedIn. So just in the search bar, searching for virtual assistants, or you could search operations managers, virtual operations managers, any of those sorts of terms work great, because obviously it brings up all the people that have themselves listed as that and are possibly looking for work. And if you're looking for something more specific, so say for example you want some email marketing support, or like campaign support, search that, you know, be specific, and people will be listing themselves with the work that it is that they're offering. Then Google, as always, is your friend. So UK-based virtual assistant services. So just searching that into Google and seeing what comes up. There are plenty of agencies out there. So Adrian, you mentioned that you are looking for sort of personal assistant specifically as a service, and the ones that would come up when you search virtual assistant services into Google tend to specialize in those kinds of tasks. So going back to that first list, it's the things like the diary management, basic admin support, customer services. Those kinds of specific tasks will typically fall under the agencies that you find when you do that Google search. And then finally, sites such as Fiverr, Upwork, and Guru. I think you can go one of two ways with these kinds of sites. These are great if you're looking for simple one-off tasks and there's something specifically that you need someone to do. These are great places to go to find that. If you're looking for someone that you want to sort of build a relationship with and build your business with, essentially, someone that you want to come in and work on those longer term projects and sort of find someone as a full-time contractor, then these probably aren't the best places to go. There's a nice analogy with Fiverr is like a pen. So if you find someone on Fiverr, you're giving them a pen and you're telling them exactly what you need them to write. So they write that and then that's it. The task is done. But if you wanted someone to help you write that script, then you would go to your network, LinkedIn, and find people there. And the difficulty with the sites such as Fiverr and Upwork, etc., is there's often a difficulty with knowledge transfer. So if you are bringing people in to do those one-off specific tasks, you know, that works fine, as they are probably specialized in that task that you need them to do. But outside of that, that's sort of where it stops. There isn't any of that longer term sort of thinking and that exploring of what's next. Is just getting that task done. So that's where you can find VAs. Hopefully that's helpful for people when thinking about looking for a VA. And then finally, tips for building a successful relationship with your VA. So I've got some do's and don'ts, and I'll start with the don'ts and then end on a positive with the do's. So a few things: assume they know how to do everything. So I think a mistake people can often make is that just because they're, you know, specialized in what it is that they do and they work remotely and they're not sort of physically with you, sat at a desk next to you, that they're just sort of getting on with it. They know what they're doing. They've done this before and, you know, they're fine. I just need to give them the task and they'll get on with it. But that doesn't take into account that you and your business have specific needs, and they need to understand what they are before they can service you in the best way. Then assume they don't know how to do anything. So on the flip side, you can sort of over-engineer things. You can, you know, you can see that there's a trap of falling into micromanagement and a sort of fear of you know, I can't see what they're doing, I can't see how they're doing it, and so I need to give them really specific instructions. I need to be checking in on them all the time, which doesn't take into account that they are specialized. You know, they do have experience working with different businesses and probably have their own ideas and their own suggestions for ways of doing things. Leave them to just get on with it. So similar to the first point, you know, they do need to have a level of understanding of you and your needs, and sort of where the task fits into the bigger picture. I think what I've seen is sometimes when you outsource tasks, if you're looking at that first list, for example, there's a tendency to just give the task, say, here you go, get on with it, and then there isn't a sort of check-in process or a follow-up and a making sure that they have everything that they need to successfully deliver that task or that project to you. Less so on the project side. I think naturally projects and processes, you would have more check-ins, but when it comes to tasks, it's useful to have those check-ins. And then telling them what to do and not how to do it. So when working with a VA, I would always recommend starting with what it is that you need doing and not how they should do it. And the reason for that, again, is everyone has their own experience and their own suggestions. And there might be a particular way that you want something done, and you know that does work and can be the best way forward. But a lot of the time, I think the outsourcing of tasks and the delegating of tasks can be a conversation rather than a delegation. And you know, you can figure it out together on how it should be done, or the giving away the trust to the VA to get the task done in the best way that they know how. Then we have some do's. So do vet them properly and use a task during the interview process. So when hiring a VA, obviously you don't need to go through the whole HR hiring process. But I do recommend that you do vet them, you do go through an interview process and make sure they are the right fit for you and your business and your way of working. I think if we think of working with a VA, we think, oh, great, I can just find someone, I'll just start working with them and I'll start outsourcing stuff. But, you know, that doesn't mean that they're going to be the right person for you. So I'd recommend creating a task that would be sort of a typical task that you need doing, and have them do that as a test so you can ascertain whether they're going to be right for that position for you. Onboard them into your company and systems properly. So again, give them that sort of cultural introduction. Make sure they have everything they need. You know, do they have all the logins to all of your systems? Do they understand who is who and why they're doing what they're doing? And just giving them that time, which will take a bit of your time in the first instance, but will pay off in the long run, because if they're able to see why they're doing what they're doing, they're more invested in you and your business, and are better able to do a good job. When delegating tasks, record a screenshot of how to do it. So there's a tool called Loom, which I can send you on Slack, but this is a great way of showing someone in your own time how you do a task, and then sending it to them so they can watch it and copy the way you do it. So that saves you time having to sit in training and sit on a video call with them and sort of go, this is how I do things. Keeping an open dialogue. So again, having check-ins, talking about performance, making sure everyone's happy with the way that the things are going. Starting small as you build trust. So don't just sort of give everything away and expect it to just just be managed. You know, I'd always recommend starting with small tasks and building up from there. And as you build trust and you build a relationship with them, then you can start to hand off more and more. It is a process, and it will take a bit of time in the beginning, but again, it will pay off once you've built that trust with them. And finally, understand what you need, but allow them to be proactive too. So going back to my point earlier, it is a two-way street. So you in yourself need to understand what it is that you need, and take that time to think about what you can have someone take on, but also allowing them to be proactive, come with their ideas, come with their experience, and draw that out of you as well. So that is the end of the workshop. Apologies that it was a bit longer than anticipated, but hopefully you got some value from it. And if anyone has any questions, then we have about 9 minutes.
Thank you so much, Ocean. That is really, really insightful and really helpful. Even from my perspective, I learned quite a lot out of that as to what I mean, at some point I could potentially get help with, like trying to set up and run the business. So really appreciate your time and sharing with us your insights. So it's really good.
No problem.
Question from me. So how do you work in a setting where everyone is remote and can't be in person? And maybe the second half of the question is also, I looked up Spark Flow Grow now and paid attention to the pricing. It's presented as 3 pretty set packages. But if we're talking about that second lot of tasks that I'm getting the sense that you can tackle, how do you define them? So how does overcoming this kind of uncertainty or the initial briefing fit into the fixed packages that you're presenting the prospects with?
Good question. So the first question, in terms of how do you work remotely, so there's a sort of a bank of tools that I would recommend. Actually, I'll put them in Slack for you. But there's Slack as a communication tool and a way to keep in touch. Then of course there's Zoom, having regular check-ins over Zoom and having that face-to-face interaction. So you can see the person you're working with and you can build that more human relationship with them. And then I use several different tools, and it really depends on the client, to be honest. But I'd always recommend a project management tool where you can house all of the tasks and the projects that you're working on, and use that as a kind of base to check in on and work from, and keep in the loop of what's going on. So I use something called Notion, and use that with several of my clients, but then some of my clients use something called Asana, some don't use one at all, and I sort of adapted to what it is that they do. But yeah, so that's a sort of way of working. In terms of the packages, so they work on an hourly basis, so you pay for a set amount of hours, and then within those hours, you would do the tasks that need doing, and spend that time, figuring out what it is that you need, building those processes, and then obviously getting on with the tasks and the processes and projects for you. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
So what about that uncertainty? The second list of kind of activities requires an understanding of a bit of context. Like if a diary management is pretty self-explanatory, then something like marketing support definitely requires a conversation. It needs to be unpacked, it needs to be prioritized. It's a more creative work as well. So how does that happen? Is it just the time is bucketed and you use it very flexibly within those buckets? And so all the conversations, context building, prioritization, objective setting, all of that goes into it. Or am I wrong about that? Maybe there's a different way.
Yeah, so all of that would typically fall into the time. What I would usually start with is a conversation at the start of the relationship, just having a kickoff call and having a sort of objective setting conversation where you sit down, figure out, okay, these are the things that I need help with right now. These are the immediate things that I need support with. What's the best way for us to tackle them? How long do we imagine each one will take? How long will the onboarding process take for each one? And what is the priority? And coming up with almost a strategy of how you would implement the handing over of those tasks. So using your specific examples, the diary management, you know, that could be, okay, we know that all I need to do is spend 30 minutes walking you through my specific way of working, you know, what meetings, you know, I like to have my meetings in the mornings, for example, like running through those specific things. And then there'll be maybe 1 to 2 weeks where we'll iron out some teething issues. We estimate that to take X amount of time based on the amount of meetings that I book in, and sort of estimate that, and then alongside that, do that with the other things. So the marketing support, for example, again, putting that strategy in place and figuring it out. A lot of it is just figuring it out based on the specifics of what you need and what is your priority, and just rolling with it and seeing how it develops as you go along.
Got it. Thank you.
Sorry, couldn't find my mouse for a moment there under all the paper on my desk. So first of all, Ocean, thank you very much for your time, because this has obviously been very valuable. And certainly it's a reminder of some of the things that you've either forgotten in life or take for granted. And so there are a couple of things that I would quite like to follow up with you, but I don't necessarily need to do that now. So I'm going to send you a private message in the chat with my email address, first of all. So you've got a way of getting back to me if you wanted to. Like Sergey, I'm interested in what I can see on your website as well. I've had a look at your packages and the services, etc., and so that's quite interesting for me. I think you've had experience in the third sector in the past, and so you'll probably be aware that certain organisations, of course, require different types of vetting. A lot of the work I do, which falls under the remit of what I would want my PA or VA or whatever it is to assist with, is work I do for other organisations on a charitable basis, 2 of which require certain types of clearance. And in order to do that effectively, I would want to be able to vet the person doing that work. I'd also want to make sure that your own firm had the necessary policies in place and insurance and those kinds of things, indemnity insurance, etc., in case there were problems later on. So if you could address those kinds of questions, perhaps back through Slack later or directly to email me. But as a minimum requirement on vetting, I want to know that your firm had insurance, indemnity insurance. I'd want to know that the people, if it's you, that's fine. If it's somebody else, as a minimum, I would require a DBS check, at the minimum level DBS check, to ensure that those individuals had you know, no notifiable criminal records. And also just to be clear that the right to work in the UK was there as well. These are the kinds of things I have to ensure to my clients in order for me to continue to work with them. So it's nothing personal, it's just a trickle down of the compliance market that we sit in. So if you wouldn't mind following up, if you want to, it's entirely up to you. And Serena, I just wanted to thank you once again for facilitating this. We have hit 2 o'clock, and I noticed that Sergei's had to leave. I also, I'm afraid, have to leave now. Ocean, last word with you if you have any follow-up for my comments.
Yeah, I will drop you an email, and it's certainly something I'm familiar with, and I do the procurement for a lot of my clients. So yeah, I'm aware of the importance of that, and it's a great question that you've raised. So
okay,
I'll drop you an email about that.
all right, I must go. Thank you all very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you for joining. Bye, Adrian.